I've been in horse racing all my life. My dad trained horses and started out around Ellis Park when I was 12 years old in the early 70s. And then got my trainer's license when I was 18 and spent a lot of time. I mean, I got off the track in 1989, 88. Went to work at Calumet Farm when Aladar and Affirmed and them were there. And, you know, and then went to work for TaylorMade in 93. And there are a number of things that happened in between there. But I galloped horses for 15 years and got my trainer's license when I was 18. But I've just basically spent, you know, my whole life working with the animal at one capacity or another.
And you know, where the love for the animals came from?
My mother, we had a breeding operation in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and stood her own stallion. My mother loved them, loved raising babies, and that's how I think I ended up raising babies. I worked for 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐑𝐞 after I left TaylorMade, and I was with 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐑𝐞 for a couple of years at Gainesboro.
And you know, Hot Spring, Arkansas, I heard a lot of good things about that track.
It's a beautiful place. When we moved there in 1977, the population was 36,000 people, but there would be 45,000 people at the races on Saturday afternoon from Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri. People came from Louisiana, but the racing was called the Racing Festival of the South End. But you had all the guys from California. You might see anybody from Whittingham, Woody Stevens, Sugar Gay, of course, was there then. But it was a great race meet back then. And it's come back to that. It had a little slow spell there for a while, but Hot Springs is a great little town. I've been blessed to have been in the game as long as I have and still be able to have fun. But I've foaled mares. I worked on the starting gate 21 derbies in a row. This year will be my 5th decade working on the starting gate at the Breeders' Cup. So I've always liked to stay where the action is. It's a good seat, you know, if you get in the gate for the Derby or the Breeders' Cup, and they pay you, you know. But
and you know, right? What's the name of some of the good grooms that was under the shed row back in the days?
The good grooms?
Who's these guys?
That rubbed Dust Commander, his name was Gandy. He was one of my favorite people. Now, Gandy would have him a pint of gin somewhere in the shed row, but the guys that back then, you know, they rubbed horses. You know, they take a burlap bag in there when they picked the horse's feet, and when they picked it, it fell on the bag. And they carried it out, or they took their muck basket there. It was an art, and it was a trade that, you know, that they loved, and they loved their animals too. But or take the burlap bag as a rub rag, you know, put a little bit of kerosene or something on there and the hair just come rolling off of them. So the tricks that you learn from those kind of guys, and if you just spend enough time with them, you know, you'd be amazed at what you can learn. Yeah. And you don't have to talk a lot. You know, they love telling their stories, so, but there's not many people around like that now. There's plenty of guys that have been on the track all their life, but back then the old timers, when they did it, and they were, especially if you brought them a pint of gin, they love to sit down and talk to you about, you know, the past and history. So,
and you know, right, in your lifetime, who goes down as the best trainer?
The best trainer?
For you in your lifetime, who's that guy?
In my lifetime, shoot, see, you're putting me on the spot there because I know them all. I mean, Jack Bamberg would be up there. He'd be one of the first guys that would have 200 horses, and he would have horses in California, and he may come to town and hadn't seen the horses in 30 days, but he could walk down the shed row and tell you who every horse was, what they got done up in, and he was there. Of course, his dad trained horses too, and he was a great horseman. But I put, you know, Billy Mott, you know, is up there to me as, you know, one of the guys that works really hard. Kieran McLaughlin, who's been my best friend since we were 9 years old. Great horseman, great trainer, but shoot, that would be. It's just one of those things that I've seen a lot of great trainers. Woody Stevens, amazing. You won't ever see anybody win 5 Belmonts in a row. But when you have guys like Bob Baffert that win 7 derbies, you know, it's and I know how hard it is to win. Some of the best guys that ever hung a bridle on a horse never won a Kentucky Derby. So in order to get a horse ready at that particular time on that particular day, that's something that's hard to do too, you know. So anybody that wins the Kentucky Derby, Lynn Whiting is another guy that I would pay respects to, and great horseman. But
and you know, who was a mentor for you throughout your career?
I galloped horses for Jack Bamberg. When I was young, my dad trained horses, and I was galloping. I always wanted to get out and learn from those kind of guys, so I would gallop for Van Berg, I galloped for Billy Mott, I galloped for Larry Edwards, who came up with those guys. Lynn Whiting, he won a Kentucky Derby. So all of those guys are my mentor. I tell everybody, if you just watch people and spend some time around, you show up every day, you'll learn something if you just pay attention and keep your mouth shut, you know.
How important is the men and women that wake up every day and do this job?
Well, it's a passion, you know, and if you're thinking about getting in the game, if you're not prepared to get up at 4 o'clock 7 days a week and be there at the barn to do your job, then you don't need to even start doing it. And you'll sit and look around here. There are a lot of these guys that have been doing it all their lives, but the guys on the racetrack, it's a commitment. And, you know, I'm retired, and people ask me, how could you do that? I'm blessed. You know, the racetrack doesn't have 401k or a retirement program. So if you're not able to put something away, enable yourself to get away, then that's where you're going to probably end up. But the ones that do it, they love it, and it's their own community and their family still. You know, it's like anything else. You're going to have little disputes from time to time, but everybody knows what they're there for, and it's a passion.
And you know the best jockey you ever seen ride a horse?
Pat Day.
Pat Day.
Joel Rosario, Irad Ortiz Jr., Johnny Velasquez, Jacinto Vasquez. There's just so many of them. You could put a blanket on them. If you put them on the best horse, they'll get the money for you, you know. But I've seen Willie Shoemaker, you know, Calvin Burrell, those guys, when the money is there. I mean, Gary Stevens, Jerry Bailey, I mean, they're just fantastic riders, and they all have their own style. But Pat was probably the most patient, relaxed guy on a horse that I ever saw. And when early fires finish on a horse, you know, Don Brumfield, horse get a little bit tired, they'd make them realize that they weren't done yet, you know. So
how can you tell a horse guy versus somebody that's trying to pass time?
Watch them the way they are around the animal. A real horseman, their demeanor doesn't change, your heart rate won't change, especially if you put one in their hands. If you put one in their hands, you'll know immediately if it's just a part-time job or if they actually have, if they're horsemen.
Right away, you could tell.
Immediately. The horse does too.
Yeah.
The horse will let you know immediately too.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.